At Sunday lunch, my daughter-in-law whispered, if she had never existed, my life would be better. The next day, the hospital called to inform her I was the bone marrow donor for her son. Your presence here means so much to me. Watch until the end and leave a comment telling me which city you're watching from. I want to see how far my story has reached. The Sunday lunch tradition at my son David's house had become a ritual I both cherished and dreaded. I arrived early as usual, carrying a homemade apple pie, David's favorite since childhood. At 65, these small connections to my only child felt increasingly precious, especially as they grew more rare. Mom, you didn't have to bring anything, David said, giving me a quick hug at the door. It's no trouble, I assured him, inhaling the comforting scent of his aftershave, the same brand his father wore before cancer took him 30 years ago. The house was immaculate as always. Rebecca, my daughter-in-law of 5 years, kept everything in perfect order, including, it seemed, my limited access to their lives. I placed the pie on the kitchen counter while Rebecca barely acknowledged my presence, focused intently on arranging a platter of deviled eggs. Can I help with anything? I offered, as I always did. Everything's under control, Susan, she replied without looking up. My 7-year-old grandson Tommy came barreling into the kitchen, his face lighting up when he saw me. Grandma. Did you bring me anything? Before I could answer, Rebecca cut in. Tommy, don't be rude. Go wash your hands for lunch. I watched him sulk away. The small gift I'd tucked into my purse would have to wait. Lunch progressed as it typically did. David talked about work at the accounting firm, Rebecca discussed her community projects, and I shared carefully edited stories about my volunteer work at the hospital. It was a dance of polite conversation, never venturing into territory too personal or meaningful. After the meal, David took Tommy outside to play catch. I started clearing the table, carrying plates to the kitchen where Rebecca was loading the dishwasher. I hesitated in the hallway when I heard Rebecca speaking on the phone. I know, it's exhausting, she was saying. She's always hovering, bringing things we don't need, asking to spend more time with Tommy. My hands tightened around the stack of plates. Honestly, Rebecca continued, her voice dropping to a whisper that still carried clearly to where I stood frozen, if she hadn't existed, my life would be better. David wouldn't have these guilt trips about family obligations, and we could just live our lives without these weekly check-ins. The plates nearly slipped from my grasp. I stood there, breath caught in my throat, as physical pain radiated through my chest. After all I had sacrificed, the career I abandoned, the opportunities one declined, the loneliness I endured, to raise David alone after his father died when he was just 4 years old. I forced myself to move, to breathe, to act normal as I entered the kitchen. Rebecca quickly ended her call, flashing me an artificial smile. You don't need to clean up, Susan. I've got it covered. I nodded, unable to form words around the lump in my throat. Somehow, I made it through the rest of the afternoon, smiling when appropriate, complimenting the meal, hugging Tommy goodbye. I even managed to thank Rebecca for lunch, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. The drive home to my small apartment was a blur of unshed tears. I'd known for years that Rebecca merely tolerated me, but hearing the raw truth of her resentment had shattered something fundamental inside me. That night, sleep wouldn't come. I kept hearing Rebecca's words, if she hadn't existed, my life would be better. Had I truly been such a burden to them? Had my love for my son and grandson been reduced to an inconvenience? The next morning, my phone rang at 7:30 a.m. Expecting a telemarketer, I almost didn't answer. Mrs. Susan Mitchell, a professional voice asked when I picked up. Yes, speaking. This is Dr. Lenowitz from Memorial Hospital. I'm calling about your tissue typing results. I gripped the phone tighter. 2 weeks ago, after overhearing Tommy's parents discussing his recent diagnosis of a rare form of leukemia, I had secretly gone to get tested as a potential bone marrow donor. We have the results, Dr. Lenowitz continued, and I'm pleased to inform you that you're a compatible match for your grandson's bone marrow transplant. It's quite remarkable, actually, a much closer match than we typically see with grandparents. I sank onto the edge of my bed, tears finally breaking free and streaming down my face. "Mrs. Mitchell? Are you there?" "Yes," I whispered. "I'm here. Would you like to proceed with the donation process?" Rebecca's words echoed in my mind. If she hadn't existed, my life would be better. "Yes," I said, my voice stronger now. "Whatever Tommy needs, I'll do it." What Rebecca didn't know, what none of them knew, was how much my existence was about to matter. I stared at the calendar hanging in my kitchen, red circles marking upcoming appointments at the hospital. 3 weeks of tests, counseling, and preparation before the actual bone marrow donation. Dr. Lenowitz had explained everything in detail: the procedure, the recovery, the risks. At my age, those risks weren't insignificant. But as I sipped my morning tea, my mind wasn't on medical procedures. It drifted back to another hospital, 30 years ago, where I'd held David's tiny hand as we said goodbye to his father. "Mommy, is Daddy just sleeping?" 4-year-old David had asked, his small fingers clutching mine as we stood beside Robert's hospital bed for the last time. "No, sweetheart," I'd whispered, struggling to explain death to a child who still believed in monsters under the bed and Santa Claus. "Daddy's gone to heaven." That night, after finally getting David to sleep, I'd sat alone at our kitchen table surrounded by unpaid bills and insurance paperwork. Robert's cancer treatments had drained our savings. At 35, I found myself a widow with a young son, a mortgage, and less than $1,000 in the bank. I'd had choices then. My sister Jane had offered to let us move in with her family in Oregon. My boss had suggested a transfer to the corporate office with better pay. And Richard, Robert's best friend, had made it clear his feelings for me went beyond friendship. He would have married me in a heartbeat and helped raise David. But I turned them all down. Moving would have taken David away from the only home he'd known, just after losing his father. The corporate position would have meant 60-hour work weeks and less time with my son. And Richard, kind, handsome Richard, deserved someone who could love him fully, not a woman whose heart was still buried with her husband. Instead, I took a more flexible job with lower pay. I moved us to a smaller house. I became both mother and father to David, attending every school event, coaching his little league team, helping with homework, and working nights after he went to bed to make ends meet. There had been moments of despair, of course. Nights when I silently cried myself to sleep from exhaustion. Days when I envied friends with partners to share the burden. Years when I set aside dreams of traveling or pursuing my own interests because every spare penny went toward David's college fund. But there had been joy too. David's first home run. His high school graduation. The day he received his college acceptance letter. The pride in watching him grow into a good man, Robert's eyes, my determination. "You sacrificed too much for me, Mom," David had told me once, during his college years. "You should have lived your own life too." But he didn't understand. He was my life. Every sacrifice had been a choice made with love, never regret. The shrill ring of my phone pulled me from my memories. David's name flashed on the screen. "Mom?" His voice sounded strained. "I just wanted to check if we're still on for Sunday lunch this weekend." I hesitated. After what I'd overheard from Rebecca, part of me wanted to break the tradition, to protect what remained of my dignity. But severing that weekly connection to David and Tommy seemed unthinkable. "Of course," I said, keeping my voice light. "I'll be there." "Great. Rebecca's making her lasagna." There was an awkward pause. Once, conversations with my son had flowed easily. Now they were filled with these strange silences, as if we were strangers searching for common ground. "How's Tommy doing?" I asked, thinking of his upcoming treatments. David sighed heavily. "The doctors say we need to start the transplant process soon. They're still looking for a matching donor." My heart clenched. They didn't know yet. The hospital had agreed to keep my donor status confidential at my request. I wasn't ready to tell them, not until I was certain I could go through with it. "I'm sure they'll find someone," I said gently. "I hope so." Rebecca's pretty broken up about it, though she tries not to show it around Tommy. I thought of Rebecca's cold eyes, her dismissive tone whenever I offered help or suggestions. Had she always resented me, or had it developed over time? I tried to pinpoint when things had changed between us. It hadn't always been this way. When David first introduced Rebecca 6 years ago, she'd seemed genuinely interested in getting to know me. We'd had lunch together several times while they were dating, and she'd asked thoughtful questions about David's childhood, about Robert. The shift came gradually after their wedding. First, it was subtle suggestions that my weekly visits might be too much. Then came comments about my parenting advice being outdated. Eventually, she began scheduling family activities that conveniently conflicted with my visits. David, eager to please his new wife, failed to notice or chose to ignore the widening rift. By the time Tommy was born, Rebecca had effectively established herself as the gatekeeper to my son and grandson. I tried everything to win her approval, bringing gifts but not too many, offering help but not too often, expressing interest but not asking too many questions. Nothing worked. In her eyes, I was an intruder in their perfect family unit. And now, hearing her true feelings, I understood that nothing ever would. "Mom? You still there?" David's voice brought me back. "Yes, sorry. Just thinking about Tommy. Please tell him Grandma's praying for him." After hanging up, I walked to my bedroom and opened the bottom drawer of my dresser. Beneath folded sweaters lay a small box containing the few treasures I had left of Robert, his wedding ring, the last Valentine's card he gave me, a lock of his hair. "What would you do?" I whispered to his memory. But I already knew the answer. Robert would have done anything for his son and grandson, just as I was prepared to do now. I closed the drawer and called Dr. Lenowitz to confirm my first predonation appointment. Whatever Rebecca thought of me, whatever pain her words had caused, none of it mattered now. Tommy needed me. And for the first time in years, I could give something no one else could. The predonation process was more grueling than I'd anticipated. Blood draws, physical examinations, consultations. Each appointment at Memorial Hospital reminded me of my age and the risks I was taking. Dr. Lenowitz had been blunt during our last meeting. "Mrs. Mitchell, I need to emphasize that bone marrow donation is more intense for someone your age. The recovery period could be longer, and there's increased risk of complications." I nodded, watching his concerned expression. "I understand, doctor. But my grandson needs this." "Your family isn't aware you're doing this?" he asked, not for the first time. "They'll know soon enough," I replied. What I didn't say was how I feared telling them, feared David's confusion, Rebecca's suspicion of my motives. Would she see this too as an intrusion? As the donation date approached, maintaining my secret became increasingly difficult. I created a cover story about visiting an old college friend in Arizona for 2 weeks. David seemed to accept this without question, which only confirmed how little attention he paid to my life outside of those Sunday lunches. "That sounds nice, Mom," he'd said, distracted by something on his phone when I called to tell him. "You deserve a vacation." The morning of the procedure, I took a taxi to the hospital. The waiting room was filled with families supporting their loved ones, but I sat alone, paperwork clutched in trembling hands. A young couple across from me held each other, the woman crying softly while her partner whispered reassurances. I wondered if they were donors or recipients, then decided it didn't matter. We were all part of the same desperate hope. "Mrs. Mitchell?" A nurse appeared, clipboard in hand. "We're ready for you." I followed her through a maze of corridors, the antiseptic smell growing stronger. In the prep room, as I changed into a hospital gown, panic suddenly gripped me. What if something went wrong? What if the donation failed to help Tommy? What if David and Rebecca never knew what I tried to do? The nurse must have noticed my distress. "First time donating?" she asked kindly. "Yes," I admitted. "It's for my grandson." Her face softened. "That's beautiful. He's lucky to have you." "Is he?" I wondered. Tommy barely knew me, given how limited my time with him was. Dr. Lenowitz arrived as they were positioning me on the table. "Are you ready, Mrs. Mitchell?" I nodded, thinking of Tommy's bright smile, so like David's at that age. The anesthesiologist will start now. When you wake up, it'll be over. As the medication entered my system, my last conscious thought was of Rebecca's words. If she hadn't existed, my life would be better. Soon, would know if my existence could save Tommy's life. The pain when I woke was immediate and intense, a deep, throbbing ache in my lower back and hips where they'd extracted the marrow. I bit back a groan, blinking against the harsh lights. Mrs. Mitchell? You're in recovery. Everything went perfectly, a nurse said, adjusting my fore. The donation, did it? My mouth was too dry to finish. Your marrow is already being processed for transplant. You've done your part beautifully. I closed my eyes, relief washing through me despite the pain. It would be worth it. Every ache, every difficult day of recovery, all worth it if Tommy got better. The next week passed in a haze of pain medication and fitful sleep. My small apartment became a prison of discomfort as I struggled with the most basic tasks. The doctors had warned me, bone marrow donation is like having a minor surgery, and at my age, recovery takes longer. Friends from my volunteer group brought meals and checked in, but I limited their visits. I couldn't risk them mentioning my surgery to anyone who might know David or Rebecca. My cover story needed to hold until Tommy started showing signs of improvement. By the 10th day, I could move without wincing, though climbing stairs still left me breathless. I checked my phone obsessively for news, but David's texts were frustratingly vague. Tommy started the new treatment. Doctors seem optimistic. No mention of a bone marrow transplant. Did they even know yet what treatment their son was receiving? Or were they so overwhelmed they simply accepted whatever the medical team suggested? On day 12, I ventured outside for the first time, walking slowly to the corner market. My neighbor Mrs. Abernathy spotted me from across the street. Susan. How was Arizona? You look a bit pale. I forced a smile. Just tired from traveling. How have you been, Edith? The lies were becoming harder to maintain. Each time I spoke with David on the phone, I had to invent details about my non-existent vacation. Each time he mentioned Tommy's treatments, I had to pretend I knew nothing about bone marrow transplants. 2 weeks after the procedure, Dr. Lenowitz called. Mrs. Mitchell, I wanted to update you personally. The transplant was successful. Your grandson's body has accepted the donation with no signs of rejection. My legs gave out, and I sank onto my sofa. Really? He's going to be okay? There's still a long road ahead, but yes, the prognosis is very good. You've given him an excellent chance at a full recovery. Tears streamed down my face as 30 years of maternal sacrifice culminated in this moment. Once again, I had given a part of myself so that my child, and now his child, could live. But as I hung up the phone, I realized the hardest part was yet to come. Soon I would return to those Sunday lunches, sitting across from the family who didn't know I'd saved Tommy's life, facing a daughter-in-law who wished I didn't exist at all. What would I say when they inevitably spoke of the anonymous donor who had given Tommy a second chance? How would I sit there in silence, my body still healing from the very procedure they would praise a stranger for enduring? Perhaps, I thought as I wiped away tears, some sacrifices were meant to remain unacknowledged. Perhaps it was enough to know that despite Rebecca's wishes, my existence had mattered in the most profound way possible. 3 weeks after the donation, I returned to David and Rebecca's house for Sunday lunch. My body still ached in places, and climbing their front steps left me winded, but I'd practiced my smile in the mirror that morning until it looked convincing. Mom, welcome back. David embraced me carefully, as if sensing my fragility despite my efforts to hide it. You look different. Did Arizona agree with you? It was just what I needed, I lied, setting down my purse and the usual offering, this time, a box of Tommy's favorite cookies. Rebecca emerged from the kitchen, her expression unreadable. Susan, glad you could join us again. No hug, not even a handshake, just the same cool acknowledgement I'd grown accustomed to. Where's Tommy? I asked, trying to keep my voice casual while my heart raced with anticipation. Dr. Lenowitz had confirmed the transplant was progressing well, but I needed to see my grandson with my own eyes. "He's resting upstairs," Rebecca said. "The treatments take a lot out of him, but you can say hello before lunch." I followed her upstairs, each step sending jolts of pain through my hips, a reminder of what I'd given. When Rebecca opened Tommy's bedroom door, I had to suppress a gasp. My grandson looked so small against his dinosaur-patterned sheets, his complexion pale, but his eyes, those bright blue eyes inherited from his grandfather, lit up when he saw me. "Grandma. You're back." He tried to sit up but seemed too weak. I moved to his bedside, ignoring the protest from my bones. "Easy there, buddy. I hear you've been really brave." "I got new blood," he announced proudly, pulling up his sleeve to show a bandage in the crook of his arm. "The doctor said it's magic blood that will make me better." "Magic blood," I repeated softly, my vision blurring with tears. I quickly blinked away. Rebecca watched from the doorway. "We were blessed with a perfect donor match," she said, her voice softening for the first time in years when speaking to me. "The doctors said it was almost miraculous to find someone so compatible." "If only you knew," I thought, reaching out to smooth Tommy's thin hair. "The doctors won't tell us who the donor is," Rebecca continued. "Just that it was someone who wanted to remain anonymous." I swallowed hard. "What matters is that Tommy's getting better." "Grandma, did you bring me anything from your trip?" Tommy asked, his innocent question pulling me back from the emotional edge. Of course I did. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small carved wooden horse I'd actually purchased from a hospital gift shop. "This is a special horse that gives courage to little boys who need it." Tommy's face lit up as he took the horse. "I love it." Downstairs, lunch was a surreal experience. David and Rebecca spoke enthusiastically about Tommy's improving condition, the effectiveness of the anonymous donor's bone marrow, and their plans for when Tommy was well enough to return to school. "The donor saved our son's life," David said, raising his glass in a toast. "Whoever they are, we owe them everything." Rebecca nodded, tears in her eyes. "I wish we could thank them personally." I lifted my glass with a trembling hand, the irony almost too much to bear. "To Tommy's recovery," I said simply. Throughout the meal, I noticed something different in Rebecca's demeanor toward me. The usual edge was missing from her voice. When I offered to help clear the table, she actually accepted instead of dismissing me. Small changes, but noticeable ones. After lunch, while David took a call from work, Rebecca and I sat on the back porch watching birds at the feeder. "Tommy's been asking for you," she said suddenly. "When you were gone, he missed you." I turned to look at her, surprised by the admission. "I know I haven't always." She began, then paused, seeming to struggle with her words. "I sometimes feel like I'm competing with you for David's attention. It's not fair, and it's not your fault, but there it is." I remained silent, afraid that anything I said might break this fragile moment of honesty. "This whole experience with Tommy has changed my perspective," she continued. "When you think you might lose someone you love, it makes you reevaluate everything." "Including me?" I wondered. Had Tommy's illness softened her heart toward the mother-in-law she wished didn't exist? Or was this temporary relief talking, a momentary opening that would close once Tommy was fully recovered? "I'm just grateful he's getting better," I said carefully. Rebecca nodded, looking out across the yard. "The doctors said the donor must have gone through a lot. The procedure isn't easy, especially for older people." My back throbbed in silent agreement. I'm sure whoever it was thought it was worth it. Later, as I prepared to leave, David walked me to my car. "Mom, I was thinking, maybe you could come by more often while Tommy's recovering? He really perks up when you're around." My heart swelled. "I'd like that very much. And Rebecca mentioned something about you teaching her how to make that apple pie I love so much." I stared at him, wondering if I'd misheard. "Rebecca wants me to teach her to bake?" David grinned. "I know, it surprised me too. But this whole experience, it's changed her somehow. Made her softer, more appreciative of family. As I drove home, conflicting emotions battled within me. Joy at the prospect of spending more time with Tommy and David. Cautious hope about Rebecca's apparent change of heart. And underneath it all, a question that wouldn't stop circling: should I tell them the truth? The secret weighed heavily as I entered my empty apartment. On my coffee table lay the hospital discharge papers I'd carefully hidden before my return from Arizona. A reminder of what I'd given, and what I'd concealed. If I revealed myself as Tommy's donor, would it heal the rift with Rebecca once and for all? Or would she resent me even more, seeing it as another attempt to insert myself into their family, to make myself indispensable? I picked up a framed photo of David as a child, his arm around me as we stood in front of our old house. We'd been through so much together, just the two of us against the world. Now, he had his own family, and I was on the periphery. But for the first time in years, that periphery seemed to be expanding, making room for me again. Did I dare risk this fragile new beginning by revealing my secret? The phone rang, startling me from my thoughts. David's name flashed on the screen. Mom? I forgot to ask, are you free on Tuesday? Tommy has a checkup at the hospital, and he asked if you could come. A hospital visit. The place where my secret began. The place where it might, inevitably, be revealed. Yes, I said, my heart racing. I'll be there. Tuesday arrived with a knot of anxiety in my stomach. I dressed carefully, choosing comfortable clothes that wouldn't press against my still tender hip bones. The pain had subsided to a dull ache, but certain movements reminded me of what my body had endured. David picked me up at 10, his face showing the strain of the past months despite Tommy's improving condition. Thanks for coming, Mom. Tommy's been asking for you all morning. How is he today? I asked, buckling my seatbelt gingerly. Better every day. The doctors are amazed at how well he's responding to the transplant. David glanced over, frowning slightly. Are you okay? You seem uncomfortable. I forced a smile. Just a bit of arthritis acting up. Nothing serious. At the hospital, Tommy was already in the examination room with Rebecca when we arrived. His face brightened when he saw me. Grandma. Look, I'm wearing my hospital socks with the sticky bottoms. He dangled his feet from the examination table to show me. Very stylish, I assured him, ignoring the twinge in my back as I bent to hug him. Rebecca nodded hello, her usual coolness notably absent. Thanks for coming, Susan. It means a lot to Tommy. Dr. Harris, Tommy's oncologist, entered the room with a tablet in hand. Good morning, everyone. And who do we have joining us today? This is my mother, Susan Mitchell, David explained. Mrs. Mitchell, Dr. Harris nodded politely. We're just doing a routine checkup to see how Tommy's responding to the transplant. The examination proceeded smoothly. Tommy's vitals were strong, his blood work showing promising improvements. Dr. Harris seemed pleased, making notes as he spoke with David and Rebecca about follow-up care. The donor cells are integrating beautifully, he explained. It's one of the best responses I've seen, especially in a case as challenging as Tommy's. We wish we could thank the donor, Rebecca said, the emotion in her voice surprising me. Whoever they are, they've given us our son back. Dr. Harris smiled. I understand the impulse, but many donors prefer anonymity. It's not about recognition for them. I lowered my eyes, suddenly finding Tommy's hospital socks fascinating. Still, David insisted, if they ever change their mind about staying anonymous, we'd want them to know what they've done for our family. The examination concluded, and Dr. Harris was preparing to leave when a nurse poked her head into the room. Dr. Harris, could I speak with you for a moment? As they conversed quietly in the doorway, I helped Tommy put his shoes back on. My hip protested as I knelt, and I couldn't suppress a small gasp of pain. Grandma, are you hurt? Tommy asked, his forehead wrinkling with concern. Just a little sore, sweetheart. Nothing to worry about. The nurse glanced over at me, then whispered something else to Dr. Harris. His eyes widened slightly before he composed his expression. Mr. and Mrs. Sinclair, would you mind if I speak with Mrs. Mitchell for a moment? Nurse Jenkins can help Tommy get his sticker for being such a good patient today. David and Rebecca exchanged confused looks, but nodded. Tommy happily went with the nurse to select his reward, while my son and daughter-in-law stepped into the hallway. Dr. Harris closed the door behind them and turned to me, his expression unreadable. Mrs. Mitchell, I've just been informed that you were Tommy's bone marrow donor. My heart pounded in my chest. How did you? Nurse Jenkins recognized you from the donation unit. She was assisting during your procedure. He leaned against the examination table. Your family doesn't know, do they? I shook my head, tears springing to my eyes. I didn't want to complicate things. Mrs. Mitchell, what you did was extraordinary. Most people your age wouldn't undertake such a physically demanding procedure. His voice softened. May I ask why you've kept it a secret? I struggled to articulate the complex tangle of emotions. My relationship with my daughter-in-law is difficult. I didn't want her to feel obligated to change that because of what I did. I didn't do it for recognition or gratitude. You did it for love, he said simply. I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. Dr. Harris sighed. I respect your privacy, but medical ethics require transparency in treatment. Your son and daughter-in-law need to know about genetic factors that might affect Tommy's ongoing care. You're going to tell them, I whispered, not a question but a realization. I believe it would be better coming from you, but yes, they need to know. He checked his watch. I have another appointment now, but I can give you some time before I return. After he left, I sat alone in the examination room, hands trembling. How would Rebecca react? Would she see this as another intrusion, another attempt to insert myself into their lives? Would David be hurt that I hadn't trusted him with the truth? The door opened, and Rebecca entered alone. David took Tommy to the cafeteria for ice cream. Dr. Harris said you wanted to talk to us, but I sensed it might be easier one-on-one first. Her voice was cautious, her expression curious. I looked up at the woman who had wished I didn't exist, who had systematically minimized my role in my son and grandson's lives, and made a decision. Rebecca, there's something you need to know about Tommy's bone marrow donor. Her eyes widened slightly, but she remained silent, waiting. I took a deep breath and looked directly into her eyes. It's me. I'm the one who donated the marrow that saved Tommy. For a long moment, Rebecca didn't move, didn't speak. Then, to my utter astonishment, she covered her face with her hands and began to sob. Rebecca's sobs echoed in the small examination room. I sat frozen, uncertain whether to approach her or give her space. After what felt like an eternity, she lowered her hands, her mascara streaked down her cheeks. You, she whispered. All this time, it was you? I nodded, my own eyes filling with tears. I got tested as soon as I learned Tommy needed a donor. I didn't tell anyone because I didn't want it to matter. Rebecca shook her head slowly, her expression a mixture of disbelief and something else I couldn't quite identify. You went through that procedure alone? At your age? Tommy is my grandson, I said simply. I would do anything for him. She stared at me, really seeing me perhaps for the first time. Even after what I said? What you overheard that Sunday? My breath caught. She knew. All this time, she had known I'd heard her cruel words. You think I didn't notice the look on your face when you came into the kitchen? Rebecca wiped her cheeks. I've been horrible to you, Susan. Absolutely horrible. And still, you did this. I looked down at my hands, wrinkled and spotted with age. Family isn't about keeping score, Rebecca. It's about love, even when it's difficult. The door opened and David entered, Tommy balanced on his hip, both of them holding ice cream cones. He stopped short when he saw Rebecca's tear-streaked face. What's going on? Is everything okay with Tommy's tests? Rebecca turned to him, her voice thick with emotion. Your mother is Tommy's bone marrow donor. David's face went blank with shock. The ice cream cone tilted in his hand, melting onto his fingers unnoticed. "Mom? Is that true?" I nodded, unable to speak past the tightness in my throat. "But you were in Arizona," he said slowly, then understanding dawned. "There was no trip, was there? You were recovering from the donation." "I didn't want to worry you," I managed. David handed Tommy to Rebecca and crossed the room in 2 quick strides, pulling me into a gentle but firm embrace. "Why didn't you tell us? We would have been there for you." "I know, sweetheart. But this wasn't about me. It was about Tommy." He pulled back, his eyes, so like his father's, searching my face. "You could have died. The risks at your age." I knew the risks, I assured him. "And I'd do it again in a heartbeat." Tommy wriggled free from Rebecca's arms and came to stand before me, his small face serious. "You gave me your magic blood, Grandma?" I smiled through my tears. "I did, sweetheart." He wrapped his arms around my legs. "Then we're super connected now, right? Like superheroes who share powers." "Exactly like that," I agreed, smoothing his hair. Dr. Harris returned, pausing in the doorway as he took in the emotional scene. "I see you've shared the news," he said gently. "Mrs. Mitchell, what you did was extraordinary. The hospital's ethics board would have had serious concerns about accepting a donor your age, but your exceptional health and the perfect match made it possible. Your grandson has the best chance possible because of you." David's arm remained around my shoulders, protective and supportive in a way I hadn't felt from him in years. Rebecca stood slightly apart, still processing, her expression unreadable. Later that evening, after Tommy was tucked into bed, the 3 of us sat in David and Rebecca's living room. The atmosphere was heavy with unspoken emotions. "Why didn't you tell us sooner?" David finally asked, breaking the silence. I sighed, gathering my thoughts. "After what I overheard that Sunday." "What did you overhear?" David looked between Rebecca and me, confused. Rebecca's face flushed with shame. "I said something unforgivable. I told my sister on the phone that if Susan hadn't existed, my life would be better." Her voice broke. I knew she heard me. I saw it in her face, but I was too proud, too stubborn to apologize. David's expression hardened. "You said that about my mother?" "David," I interrupted gently, "what matters is now, not then." Rebecca shook her head. "No, Susan. This needs to be said." She looked directly at me. "I was jealous of your relationship with David. I resented how Tommy always lit up when you visited. I felt replaced somehow, as if I wasn't enough." "Oh, Rebecca," I said softly. "That was never the case." "I know that now." She took a shaky breath. "When Tommy got sick, suddenly all those petty resentments seemed so stupid. And now, knowing what you did for him, for us." Tears spilled down her cheeks again. "I don't deserve your forgiveness." "It's not about deserving," I said, the wisdom of my 65 years settling around me like a comfortable shawl. "It's about family. About starting again." David reached for both our hands, creating a circle of connection. "Then that's what we'll do. We'll start again." In the weeks that followed, small but significant changes transformed our family dynamic. Rebecca began inviting me over for dinner on Wednesdays in addition to our Sunday lunches. She asked for my recipes, my advice about gardening, even old stories about David's childhood that she'd previously shown no interest in. David stopped rushing through our conversations, instead making time for meaningful connection. He started calling just to check in, something he hadn't done since before his marriage. And Tommy, sweet Tommy with his grandfather's eyes and a second chance at life because of my magic blood, developed an unshakable belief that we shared a special superpower. Every time I visited, he would press his small hand against mine and whisper, "I can feel the magic, Grandma." One Sunday afternoon, 3 months after the truth was revealed, I arrived at their house to find Rebecca alone in the kitchen. "David took Tommy to the park," she explained, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "I wanted a chance to talk to you alone." My old anxiety flared briefly, but her expression was open, free of the cool reserve I'd grown accustomed to. "I'd been doing a lot of thinking," she said, motioning for me to sit at the kitchen island. "About what family means. About the example I want to set for Tommy." She placed a small box in front of me. "This is for you." Inside was a delicate silver bracelet with 3 intertwined circles. "Each circle represents one of us," Rebecca explained. "You, me, and David, all connected through Tommy." I slipped it onto my wrist, too moved to speak. "I know I can't erase what I said or how I've treated you," she continued. "But I want you to know that I understand now what I almost lost, what Tommy almost lost, because of my pettiness." I reached across the counter and took her hand. "We all make mistakes, Rebecca. What matters is that we learn from them." She squeezed my hand, a genuine smile transforming her face. "Tommy asked if you could stay overnight sometime. He said superheroes need slumber parties." I laughed, a lightness in my heart I hadn't felt in years. "I think that can be arranged." Later, as the 4 of us sat around the dinner table, Tommy regaled us with stories from the park. David and Rebecca exchanged loving glances, their hands intertwined on the tabletop. I watched them, this family that was mine, truly mine now in a way they hadn't been before. The bracelet caught the light as I reached for my water glass, the 3 circles gleaming. Rebecca had been right about one thing: if I hadn't existed, her life would have been different. But not better, just emptier, missing the bond that now connected us all. Some sacrifices go unnoticed, fading into the background of lives lived and choices made. But others, like the marrow I'd given and the silence I'd maintained, sometimes find their way to the surface, transforming pain into healing, resentment into understanding. Tommy caught my eye across the table and grinned, pressing his hand to his chest where my cells now flowed through his veins. I mirrored the gesture, our private acknowledgement of the magic we shared. Family, I realized, isn't defined by blood alone, but by the sacrifices we make for one another, seen and unseen, acknowledged and unacknowledged. The price may be high, but the reward, this moment, this belonging, was worth everything.